Aunt Jane and the 4 Alden children, Violet, Benny, Henry, and Jessie, hurried out of the Miami airport. They had arrived in Florida to visit Aunt Jane's friend, Kay Kingsley. Grandfather's sister, Aunt Jane, said, "Hurry, children." She smiled to herself. She was lucky to have married a man like Andy Bean. He was most understanding and had urged her to visit her friend and stay as long as she liked. Grandfather Alden had agreed that she take her nieces and nephews with her for a Florida vacation. As they came out into the hot August sunshine, Jessie said, "I miss Watch already." "Oh, our dog is happy keeping Grandfather Alden company," Henry reassured her. "You wouldn't want Grandfather to be all alone, would you?" Jessie shook her head, but she felt sad.
"Look!"
Benny shouted.
"Palm trees!"
Aunt Jane laughed.
"You'll see stranger sights than palm trees in the Florida Everglades," she said.
Benny squinted up at her.
"What are the Everglades?"
he asked.
"The Everglades are a huge national park in Florida. The park has lots of waterways and swamps with all kinds of wildlife, from alligators to pelicans," Violet said. "I've read all about it."
Henry grinned. "Just wait till we see it." Benny's round face lit up, and his eyes grew big.
"Alligators?"
"Alligators," Henry echoed. "You might not see one, though, because there are not as many now as there used to be." Jessie hurried forward.
"That must be Kay Kingsley in the blue dress. She's hugging Aunt Jane."
The 4 of them ran forward. Kay Kingsley stopped talking. Her dark eyes admired the 4 Aldens lined up in front of her.
"Jane, are these the Alden children?"
Aunt Jane smiled proudly.
"Yes, indeed."
She placed her hands on Benny's shoulders.
"This is Benny, the youngest." "I'm 6 years old,"
he said proudly. Aunt Jane touched him under the chin.
"So you are, Benny."
She motioned the others forward.
"This is Henry, the oldest."
Politely, Henry shook Mrs. Kingsley's hand. He was 14 years old, of medium height, with brown hair.
"This is Violet,"
Aunt Jane continued.
"She's 10, and as you can see, she loves the color of her name."
Violet's face turned pink, but she smiled when she glanced down at her lavender T-shirt. Shyly, she said,
"Hello, Mrs. Kingsley."
Kay chuckled.
"Oh, please, call me Kay." "And last but not least,"
Aunt Jane said, stepping to one side and drawing Jessie forward,
"this is Jessie Alden. She's 12.
Jessie's eyes twinkled.
"Hello, Kay."
A blue ribbon tied back her brown hair.
"Jane, I have so much to tell you,"
Kay said happily, putting her arm around her friend.
"All of you,"
she ordered pleasantly, glancing back,
"follow me."
Kay, her blue skirt rustling slightly in the warm breeze, walked to a white van. She opened the driver's side and paused.
"Oh, Jane, it's so good to see you and these darling children."
There was a catch in her throat.
"I was lonely in my empty motel."
Jane gave her a quick look. Kay sounded as if she really needed someone.
"Is your motel empty?"
She couldn't hide the surprise in her voice.
"Almost,"
Kay answered.
"Out of 10 units, I only have 2 rented."
She slid into the driver's seat.
"But you'll soon see for yourself."
The Aldens couldn't wait to see the motel, and the swimming pool, and the tennis court they'd heard Aunt Jane talk about. The ride to the motel was fun. The children's eyes were glued to the tall cypress trees and the marshy grass. In the distance, long fingers of water, dotted with clumps of reeds, reached into the mangrove forests. Cranes screeched as they walked along the marsh on skinny legs. Peering into the muddy water, the big birds waited for a fish to appear.
"Florida is sure different from Greenfield,"
Benny said. Violet laughed.
"You're not lonesome, are you, Benny?" "Not me,"
Benny said firmly. After a 40-mile ride, Kay arrived in the small town of Lindale. She drove a few more miles until she came to a narrow lane that led to her motel. Large cypress trees shaded both sides of the road. When the car stopped, the Aldens glimpsed a long building nestled among the trees, but it didn't look very inviting.